60 combined national championships, nearly 2,000 combined victories, programs number 1 and 2 in all-time wins and national titles. That's right, we're talking about Syracuse and Johns Hopkins. For the 60th time, the Orange and the Blue Jays battle on the lacrosse field with both squads fighting to join the elites in the country. For the next 30 minutes, we preview one of the game's best rivalries, Syracuse, Johns Hopkins, Cuse Countdown. Let's go! Hey there, welcome inside the CitrusTV studio for Cuse Countdown with Chilekasi, Adele, and Zach Letson. I'm Joe Puccio. Simply put, this is the most important news story going on in Syracuse athletics at the moment. Syracuse and Johns Hopkins meeting for the 61st time this Saturday at 4 p.m. But guys, we got to talk first about the elephant in the room, right? Syracuse outside of the Inside Lacrosse Top 20 poll for the first time since the preseason. Chile, your thoughts on SU's recent losing skid dropping them outside the poll?
You know, Joe, this team has kind of hit a roadblock at this point in the season. You know, you start off winning the first 3 games of the season, you fall and you lose the next 3. I think as you start to get to these tougher opponents with a lot of these young guys that you got in this team, it's a little bit of a struggle, and it's a rut that they're going to have to get out of.
It's a disappointment, but I think we'd be lying to ourselves if we said it was unexpected. Listen, this team came into the season with a lot of talent, but was unranked coming into that Vermont game. You start high, you hit a cold stretch. It's not the end of the world for this team, and Joe, they've got more than enough opportunities starting on Saturday to change that. Yeah, with all this negative talk, I guess it's pretty easy to conclude that SU lost last time out. This time to number 5 Duke in an overtime thriller, 14-13. Zach, what stood out to you the most? How many shots Syracuse allowed and the amount of shots that Will Mark was forced to face. It's not a winning formula when your goalie has to face 65, 66 shots. And Will Mark had one of the best games of any Syracuse goalie in a long time. Syracuse at times looked like they were going to play well enough to win this game, but just got outplayed from start to finish in terms of just, you can't let your goalie give up that many, and you can't let Johnny Rashusha has to have a better day at the faceoff decks. You can't get dominated 21-9, and that is why Syracuse came up short. That's what stood out to me, honestly. Johnny Rashusha has been getting dominated by everybody and anyone all season long at the faceoff decks, and that's exactly what, in my opinion, led to this loss on Sunday. You got to be better. That sets the tone for the entirety of the game. It absolutely can't happen. Well, you take a look at the screen there. Will Mark made 22 saves last time out against Duke. Yes, he's making a lot of saves and he's going on tour. It's on a watch list, but that means he's been peppered all season long. No goaltender has made more saves in the country, and he's just seeing a boatload of opportunities. So Chile, the man between the pipes, is the center of a hot topic debate. Right. This is a game where he comes back and he rebounds after giving up 19 goals against UNC. That's a season high, and even though it's already 6 games. This is a guy with resolve. This is a guy that's also facing a very high shot volume. So at times, it's hard to judge when you see those kinds of games, like what happened against UNC. But at the same time, you gotta absolutely commend Will Mark for bouncing back and coming up big time for this team. It's just a shame they couldn't get it done. You don't get as close as you did against Duke. You don't get nearly as close as you did against Maryland. I don't even know if you even beat Vermont, if not for these sensational Will Mark performances. That's been really the biggest difference between Syracuse this year and Syracuse last year. Sure, you can talk about the freshmen all you want, and they're superstars at that, but for Syracuse to be able to have a guy like Will Mark, last year you've been missing someone like Drake Porter. He steps out. Last year was a mess for this Orange team, and there's a lot more stability, Joe, because of who's in between the pipes. Yeah, the goaltending has been cleaned up. Mark is a positive for the Cuse. The offense is in the top 30 in scoring. The man-up unit scored 19 goals, leaps and bounds better than any team in the nation. So what could possibly be going wrong with this team right now? Maybe Coach Gate can steer us in the right direction.
We unfortunately are not doing well in 2 other areas, and that's face-off and ground balls. And those 2 areas are hurting us pretty bad right now. You know, I can imagine our last 3 games, if face-offs and ground balls were even in our last 3 games, I think we would be 3-0 in this run.
All right, so Gate makes it pretty clear and simple. SU doesn't have the ball in its stick after faceoffs and is rough at giving itself opponents when the ball is up for grabs. Zach, the Orange are dead last in both of those categories in the ACC.
Seems pretty important, right? Like maybe, I don't know, the objective of lacrosse, you win some face-offs, you get possession more, you win games. And that's exactly what it would have been for the Syracuse team, because we've talked about the talent, we've talked about how close Syracuse has played in these games, but you can't get beaten, and not only beaten, but beaten in the fashion you have in these last couple games and expect results. I mean, just this game against Duke, ground balls was an absolute struggle. 17 more ground balls for Duke. You're not beating Johns Hopkins if that happens again. And then the shots on net as well. Syracuse from a possession standpoint. That is where it starts and where it ends.
It's been absolutely ugly. Let me tell you, Gary Gate, he's spitting out there, all right? Nearly 50 more ground balls for opponents this season than Syracuse has throughout 6 games already. It's been absolutely ugly. And there's nothing that goes going towards the future if you're not getting it done at the face-off X.
Yeah, it's the main reason why Will Marks saw 60 shots. But Gary Gate hinted at this postgame. If SU was successful in faceoffs and grounders, SU could be undefeated. That's due in large part, Chile, to the Orange's fly-high electric man-up offense. Yeah,
exactly right, Joe. You know, Syracuse 3rd in the nation in player-up offense. Absolutely amazing so far. Over 600% in terms of that percentage. Right behind Virginia, and only 6 goals on 9 attempts. That's the next best ACC team with Notre Dame in 10th. They have been very, very efficient in the player-up, and that's exactly. You need so many things to go right for this team to finish and win these types of games, but that is one thing that I've seen so far in the Syracuse club.
I think that's been the biggest pleasant surprise, really, if you will, of this brand new Orange group. Listen, there's so many babies, young faces on this Orange squad. That's been the positive side. Special teams is pivotal, and when you look at these stats, it's really remarkable because, yes, of course, the 66% for Syracuse, but then holding opponents to 28% on their man up as well. It has been stout for this Orange group and a big key in terms of, well, trying to pick up W's at the end of the day.
Yeah, there's been a pretty key baby for that SU man up offense. Look, lacrosse experts put their offense on, or their focus rather, on the leader of the offense, the quarterback, the X-Man. For the Cuse, it's freshman, the baby, Joey Spallina, who leads the team with 16 goals and 23 points. Over at the wall, Chilekasi Adele breaks down what's made the jaw-dropping freshman shine.
It's been 6 games into the season for SU men's lacrosse, but I've already seen a couple of different game styles from Joey Spallina. Take a look at some of this footage from Vermont. You know, Spallina, he's backing down, trying to get through to the net through his defenders, but you can see there's a lot of errant shots here. There's a lot of stuff. He's trying to get that first collegiate goal. Maybe there's some jitters in there as well. Maybe he's trying to impress, but you can see he finally gets one. That is his 10th attempt that day against U Vermont. 9 shots didn't go in. The 10th one finally went in. But you can kind of see as you start to move throughout the season here, he's become more calculated in those shots. And that showed in Maryland where he had that beautiful behind-the-back goal. You know, this one doesn't go in, but you get this one right down here. That looks absolutely beautiful. And, you know, he did it here against UNC as well. And also Duke. Mind you, these were the first shots of the game for Joey Spallina. So it shows you that he's being more calculated, he's backing down his defenders, and he's waiting to find that room to go and put it home past those goalies. But guess what? The thing with Spallina, a lot of people, you know, expected him to put more goals up after the first couple of games. That's not just why he's here. He's a great goal scorer, don't get me wrong, but he's also a facilitator. And even though his goal totals have gone down in the past few games, his assists have gone up. You can see that he's finding ways to dish the ball. You see this here against UNC. That's a beautiful feed right down there in the middle. And it's continuing. This also happened against Duke. You could see him trying to find the way in and whisking it right through. This is exactly what you wanted from Joey Spallina. It's exactly what needs to continue. But guess what? Joe has the story of a transfer captain also making an impact.
Family, school, lacrosse. For Syracuse midfielder Cole Kirst, those 3 are intertwined. Starting with his family, the Jersey boy is one of 4 Kirst sons. Their father, Kyle, was a Rutgers goalie in the 80s and is a New Jersey Lacrosse Hall of Famer. Cole's eldest brother, Connor, played 4 years at Attack with Villanova and 1 at Rutgers. The youngest Kirst, CJ, is a junior at Cornell and has already played in the national championship. Right in the middle is Cole's former teammate, Colin. Colin was a 4-year starter at Lehigh between the pipes. Defensively and offensively, the Mountain Hawks were led by a Kirst. Cole scored 55 goals and 81 points in 4 seasons. Won second-team All-Patriot League honor later, and Kirst made the switch. Cole joined SU's second-line midfield with Luke Roa and Jackson Birtwistle. To join an electric SU offense is enticing, but more so, the time spent away from the field brought Kirst to the hill.
But also to receive an education from Newhouse and, kind of learn the process of what you guys are all doing. I think it's really cool to be on the back end of that and asking the same questions to other athletes, and not only other athletes, but also just creating news stories. It's been a really cool semester, not only this spring, but also in the past fall. A lot of familiar faces that I'm classmates with in this room. So it's pretty cool just to come full circle, to be on the other end of it.
Maybe we'll see Cole on CitrusTV. Who knows? Cole Kirst is earning his master's in broadcast and digital journalism from the Newhouse School, one of the nation's top broadcasting institutions. Kirst has anchored morning news shows from Newhouse and starred on ACC network broadcasts. Kirst has shined in front of a camera, whether it be in a suit or shoulder pads. Cole has scored in all but 1 game this season and tied a career-high 4 goals against Duke on Sunday. Cole Kirst hopes to analyze lacrosse on television in the future. With his tightly wound family, his pursuit to obtain the highest levels of education, and his lax play you want to mark with a highlighter, Cole Kirst's possibilities are within a short stick's reach. Can Cole repeat his 5-point effort on Sunday? Well, when we come back on Cuse Countdown, we look at the opposition. Let's preview Johns Hopkins after this.
Jordan knows he shouldn't eat this entire bowl of nachos, but tonight he's earned that right. Because a few hours ago, in the middle of happy hour, he recognized a sign. Not from the gods or a bolt of lightning, but from a double heart, a kissy face, and a 4th ha in ha ha ha. That's when Jordan knew he was buzzed. So when it was time to go, he got a ride home instead of driving. Be a legend like Jordan. Recognize your buzzed warning signs and get a ride home. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
We're back inside the CitrusTV studio. Chilekasi, Adele, Zach Letson, and Joe Puccio here to preview Syracuse men's lacrosse's fight with longtime rival Johns Hopkins. Face-off is on Saturday at 4. Guys, last year these two teams played down in Baltimore, and there hasn't been an investigation, but I'm not sure if they put a magnet in lacrosse balls or something, but in SU's 10-7 loss, the Orange hit the post 8 times. 8 times. Syracuse invented some new chimes for the Kraus Bell Tower, but Chile, if just half of those shots found string, this would be a different story.
Right, Joe, and there were so many opportunities for Syracuse to win this game that just didn't end up falling. They outshot Hopkins 54-29, and Johns Hopkins also had 21 turnovers in this game. There were so many opportunities over the course of when you talk about the pipes. Maybe we should just informally dub this the pipe game for the rest of our lives, but there were so many chances here.
I've never heard of a game where you hit the pipes more than you hit the back of the net. That's all I got to say. Pretty unbelievable stuff. You mentioned the 54 shots. That sticks out like a sore thumb, Chile, because there is no scenario in the world where you could have 54 tries on net and 7 of them score. That's just inefficiency, and Gary Gate after that game used his favorite word that we hear a million times, execution, whereas the Orange lacked that and didn't have any of that in that one.
Syracuse didn't execute in the 60th all-time meeting. SU and Johns Hopkins have illustrious histories, like we mentioned at the beginning of the program. Zach Letson put his research cap, metaphorically of course, on prior to the 61st all-time meeting and got into the weeds of the Orange and Blue Jays rivalry.
The year is 1921. The Roaring Twenties begin. New York Yankees fans become enamored with this new guy. Maybe you know him. His name's Babe Ruth. But that very year, over a century ago, was also the first time that the two most successful collegiate lacrosse programs in the history of the sport squared off for the very first time. Since then, 20 national titles between Syracuse and Johns Hopkins, the most between any two programs ever. But the catch is that it's been north of a decade since either team won on the game's biggest stage. And plenty of storylines exist in the present when you fast forward to now. Dave Petromala spending 2 decades coaching the Blue Jays until Gary Gait came calling a year ago. Then both coaches watched their team, the Orange, hit more pipes, 8, than score goals, 7, last year at Homewood Field in Maryland. In the time between that matchup a year ago and the first one over a century before, 5 battles in the national championship, 3 that went the Orange's way. So, guys, long story short, when Syracuse and Johns Hopkins go to war, expect nothing short of just that, war.
Zach, and let's meet the commander for Johns Hopkins. That's head coach Peter Milliman. The Marylander is in his 3rd season coaching the Jays after 2.5 seasons at Cornell. His 5-0 campaign in 2020 obviously was cut short. Chile Milliman took over after Dave Petromala's long and storied run, and his task is bringing this program back to relevancy.
Yes, sir. And, you know, Joe, it's been kind of a mid-tier first couple seasons. Second season, Baltimore took over in 2021, made the Big Ten championship that year, lost to the national champion runner-up in Maryland. So, you know, this team has been able to compete. And you saw they were 7-9 last season, but they also had the 3rd toughest schedule in the nation as well. So it's been kind of a growing process for Hopkins here.
Yeah, you said it. I think I'm willing to give Milliman a pass for last year because of the difficulty of that schedule. And losing Petromala, that was a hit for this program. But finding someone in Milliman, one of the best replacements you're probably going to find, because this is someone who's proved it right here in Central New York, led Cornell to a fantastic run in the short time that he was there as head coach, including an appearance in an NCAA quarterfinal. And this is someone that has had 5-6 different stops as an assistant. You're hard-pressed to find a more qualified guy that deserves the promotion, and that's why he's deserving of this job.
A longtime head coach all of a sudden steps away from the program, and there's a lot of questions. I wonder what that sounds like. Anyways, who does Milliman have to work with? Well, he's got quite the 1-2 punch up top, let me tell you. Let's start with the primary disher, Jacob Angelis. The senior leads the squad with 24 points, 18 of those being assists. Angelis has already matched his 2021 season total. Zach, that's a mean, lean 5'9" machine stirring at Johns Hopkins drink.
You want to talk about veteran leadership in the coach and Petromala and all these other guys? How about veteran leadership as a player?
Yeah.
This guy hasn't missed a game in a light blue Jays uniform in his career. I'm talking 41 games, 3.5 years, and what's great about his role on this Johns Hopkins team, Joe, is that he's a pass-first guy. He's not going to be the initial one to try to shoot. 18 assists on the season compared to just 13 shots on goal in total, but he's been efficient on that mark as well with 6 goals.
Yeah, and you've seen him kind of get into that role as the season kind of goes on, dishing the ball out. You're not being selfish here. You're playing your role. You're helping be that facilitator. Kind of what we've been seeing from Joey Spallina lately for Syracuse. It's a very similar role.
Well, what if Angelis is distributing all the apples, who's converting the Genos? That's none other than Garrett Degnan. The grad student has a point in 39 of his last 40 games. That's right. And leads the Big Ten's 2nd best scoring offense with 14 goals. Chile, what do you see in Degnan's game? You
know, he is an absolute scoring machine. He's on a 19-game goal scoring streak dating back to last season.
Is that good?
Yes, that's excellent.
All right.
And, you know, we're talking about this week against Virginia. He also had a hat trick against that. That's his 2nd game in a row. He's had a hat trick, 14 goals this season. He's been absolutely excellent.
It's hard to imagine a scenario, this is how I look at it, right, where this Hopkins team plays well and Degnan is not a part of that. It feels like it's inevitable that he's going to play a part in this offense. 7 goals in the last 2 games, and watching that Virginia game, Hopkins comes up short, but he had a fantastic game, a hat trick, someone that's not afraid at all. A lot of confidence to rip it 20, 30 yards out for a Syracuse defense that's been up and down. That could spell trouble.
Some veterans for Johns Hopkins offense, some young guys for Syracuse's offense. And hey, speaking of those youngsters, when we come back, Zach and Chile dish out some report cards. We evaluate Syracuse's play up to this point and how efficient are those freshmen for the Orange. Don't go anywhere. It's Cuse Countdown on CitrusTV.
They took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Hey, Bobo. Do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
I thought I heard the bell ring, but I think SU hit another post in the 2021 Hopkins game. Or it's Countdown Classroom. And you know, that is the answer. Professor Puccio's here with these two students, Chilekasi, Adele, and Zach Letson. Pretty simple. We've got 3 topics to go over, and these two are giving out their grades. Normally the students don't give out the grades. It's probably me, but hey, that's what Cuse Countdown is all about. All right, so we're starting with the defense for SU. SU leads the ACC in save percentage and saves per game, but it's mostly just a Will Mark showcase. So, Chile, what do you grade SU's defense?
Mr. Adele gives the SU defense a B-.
Do you need a pen? You just wrote with your finger. I didn't do anything.
There you go.
There you go.
Now he's got it down. There you go.
Now I got to explain that, right? They're tied for 23rd in the nation in scoring defense. They're averaging about 11 goals per game. Here's the problem with this defense, right? It's been good, not great. And it really has been down the stretch, like we talked about earlier in the show. First 3 games, SU was doing really well, holding opponents to under 10 goals, but you saw it balloon against UNC, and you saw it against Duke as well. It's something they got to get in control, but they started off well. There's a good starting point there.
Yeah, you're right. It's been synonymous with how the season has gone. If you asked me after the UAlbany game what grade I'm giving this group an A. But we're not after the UAlbany game. We're 6 games into the season.
No.
And I have Mr. Letson's got to come in a little more firm on this one and put down a C+. All right? Because this group left Will Mark out to dry. I could give him a C or a D for how they played in that Duke game. That's unacceptable because of how well your goalie plays. And listen, with this group, I don't think it's an untalented group. I think it is a talented group that's learning to gel together. But you're talking about, guys, a team that just looked like they were late on everything. Late on one-on-one matchups, late to slide. What did that lead to? Wide open shots in front of the net. Maybe Will Mark's going to save that and be a hero, but then you got a wide open rebound. And then what happens? And we saw a lot of that, and that's what this defense has struggled with.
Well, you look at Maryland, right, that has Brett Makar as one of the best long stick defensemen. Maybe SU, I mean, obviously you're looking at a Toronto watch guy. Of course he would help, but SU doesn't even have that force defensively. So it's pretty tough grades here. B- and C+ off the rip. So I bet the next 2 will go just as smoothly. Let's look at the coaching staff, all right? This is a seismic change for SU. John Desko was there for a while. Gary Gate comes in. He's in his 2nd season. Same thing with Dave Petromalo, the former Hopkins head coach. There's no Hopkins logo there. That's just some grades. But the big thing now, Pat Marsh, as an offensive coordinator, still been there since 2020. So, Zach, how would you grade the coaches throughout the season?
Again, it's been about ups and it's been about downs, and it's a new group, so I'll be a little nice. But you also got to be honest. I got to give this group a B- for how
not
things
nice at all.
have gone. I mean, listen, you lose 3 in a row. What I got eyes. I'm watching the games. All right.
Oh, man.
And right now, this team just hasn't been able to execute. And when you talk about execute, shout out Gary Gate.
Shout out Gary.
When you talk about the games with your back against the wall, I hate to bring it to that, but that's been the theme with Gary Gate coach teams. The games where you're thinking to yourself, oh, this is kind of a game that could go either way. This is a game that could be more 50-50. None of them have gone Syracuse's way. It seemed like last year there were so many close losses, and the way that Syracuse fell in heartbreaking fashion in that Duke game, Syracuse just didn't execute enough and got outplayed and quite frankly didn't look prepared enough to deal with playing in that game.
Listen, you thought you were being nice. I'm just not going to be nice. I'm giving it a C+, all right? Listen, and frankly, if it was just Dave Petromalo, we may be going F here.
Oh, boy.
We may be going F
You don't want
here.
to tell them that.
Listen, this team, they've improved from last year, but they're not. They started well, but the past 3 games, like I said earlier, it's been an absolute bad thing. It's just not good at all. You know, the first 3 games, they only gave up 18 goals, but 48 goals. That's nearly, what, 3 times in the last 3 games? It's been absolutely horrendous for this team lately, and they've got to find a way to get it back together, and it all starts with Dave Petromalo.
So the coaches are a problem, which means that the young studs have to be a problem too, right? Let's talk about the freshman. Joey Spallina, he leads the team in points. Finn Thompson's also a pretty good offensive weapon as well on the offensive side. Billy Dwan and Dylan Seguider are getting some looks on the defensive side. So, Chile, give me a grade for the freshman. Your first year in college and high school normally isn't the best. So, what do you got?
Listen, you got to be a little bit hard on them, but I'm really impressed with how they're performing so far. I'm going to give a B+ to the freshman. Joey Spallina, you know, he's been as expected. He started scoring a lot of goals at the beginning of the season. Now he's more in that facilitator role. He's assisting a lot. He's doing exactly what we need to. Finn Thompson, too. 7 goals, 7 assists. I'm really impressed with him. High grades so far for a lot of these freshmen who are getting on the board, and they're also helping to dish it out as well.
I'm tempering the expectations a little bit, just a tad.
Mean. You're so mean.
But it's a really exciting group, too. I'll go with a B. I'll go with a B for this group because I think Spallina has been sensational. There's been the ups, there's been the downs. Finn Thompson, for me, it's been a little bit more about flashes. I want to see it a little more consistently. You're talking about 4 goals against Holy Cross. The rest of the stretch hasn't really come together. I mean, we know this guy is sensational. He was a top 5 recruit. I got no concern down the road. If we come down to the road to this question, maybe end of the season, I think, Joe, that you could be looking at it once this team develops.
Some pretty rough grades here, but I think if you were to look at the freshman Chile, just go Zach Lunch. B+. That was Zach's best class. Elementary school. All right, we got one more break here on Cuse Countdown. When we come back, we're talking about the historic Mikey Powell getting his number 22 up in the rafters, and we make our predictions. Don't go anywhere. Hey, Stu the Deli, give me that pen. That's Professor Puccio's right there. Hey, we're wrapping up shop here on Cuse Countdown. SU and Johns Hopkins do battle at 4 p.m. on Saturday. Chilekasi, Adele, Zach Letson, and Joe Puccio with you. On Saturday, not only does SU have a chance to take down its heated rival, but they have to do so on a momentous day. Mikey Powell, the program's all-time leader with 370 points, he is putting his number 22 up in the rafters. Zach, how special was Mikey?
It's hard to really put into words how special he is and how special this number 22 is for Syracuse. You're hard-pressed to find a number in lacrosse. Go anywhere. That's my goal to you. Go anywhere to try to find a more accomplished guy. You talked about a more accomplished number. You talk about the 300 points. Tewaaraton winner. This guy did it all at Syracuse, and it's so great that he's finally getting on.
Right, and he was very shifty with the stick too. He's lots of flair in his game. He really helped to grow it in terms of how he moved around. For a lot of people, I know I was looking at Denise Stroff on Twitter, there was really nothing like it.
So, with the shadow of now 2 22s up in the rafters, does Syracuse come away with the victory? Chile, we'll go to you first.
Yes, sir. 12-9. It will be a good one. You know, SU fell 10-7 last year to Hopkins, but I think they're going to find it this way. They got to get out of that 3-game rut. They're going to. They came really close against Duke. It's going to happen.
Upset win for the Cuse, 13-11. I think finally a team with a chip on their shoulder finally turns it around.
Finally, Mikey Powell getting his 22 up in the rafters. Another edition of SU and Johns Hopkins set for 4 p.m. on Saturday. You can follow us on Twitter at CitrusTV Sports for live updates throughout the game. For Chilekasi and Zach, I'm Joe Puccio. Enjoy the game.